Good morning. Peace. Well, I think it would be pretty much universally acclaimed that that is what all of us would wish for and strive for. I've just been savouring my little peaceful corner. Yeah, St Michael's Square, Alnwick, Northumbria, England, the northeast corner of England, and we've just had lovely gentle rain through the night. The sun's come out for a while. I think there's more rain due, which is actually great. It keeps us all nice and green and pleasant. Very little traffic noise, but I'm still in a relatively small English town. So amongst people, I watched that lovely film again, Ring of Bright Water, with Bill Travers and Virginia McKenna, who of course did actually marry. I think they started their filming together in the film Born Free, which is about a lioness or lion cub. Elsa, I think was the name, in Africa, 1966, and then Ring of Bright Water, 69. But I think they were very happily married for many years and started a sort of nature conservancy foundation, and so it's the backstory is rather lovely too. They are genuinely acting together, but they are in fact genuinely husband and wife, and very happily married, I believe. So it's rather, for me anyway, I find it charming. It's only about this otter and so on. There's no horridness in it at all. Well, apart from the fact that the otter actually gets killed in the end by some old local. No, it's only an otter. But then there are little otters, you see. So there is a sort of message of hope at the end as well. Partly why I mention that is I've also had this longing to be off in the Highlands somewhere in Scotland with a wee house just exactly like that, with you have chimneys either end of the house, fires, and you have your peats. You cut peat, it dries, it takes years, but it burns beautifully. Peats burn beautifully. You have a special spade for cutting them, great big long thing, 2 foot or more. You cut your peats and stack them, and you've got the phrase is, may your lum I blithely reek. So may your chimney always be smoking. You'll have enough fuel to keep yourself warm in the winter, and it's certainly on the west coast, and I think this was Camus Fiona is the name, and there was a little pond and a stream nearby and so on. So actually all the elements that I would love to have too, but no people. And then that would be for me the major element missing. I love people. I want to interact with my fellow human beings, and obviously here I can. Curiously, primarily in the supermarket. But I've known that for yonks. I've travelled the world, and wherever I end up, I'll obviously go to a supermarket. You've got to buy food anyway, but you get a sense of the local environment just without even talking to people, just by the people who are in the supermarket, just doing their daily shopping, as it were. So, this question of peace. Well, to be at peace within oneself, I think, is very important. If you are at peace in your own environment, clearly you're much better able to bring that peace to others and into the world. So, I listen to my Carthusian monks. These are different, but from St. Bruno in 1084, 1084 is sort of the pivotal date. And they have this wonderful place in the mountains, middle south of France, and live this life of contemplative prayer. No interaction with the outer world, really. They see friends and relatives, I think, once a year. Well, wonderful. You are then in this contemplative relationship with God, at peace. You have your daily routine, midnight vigils, so every night you're up at midnight, the old bell goes and up you get, and 2 hours plus of Gregorian chant in Latin. You'll have a rest later and so on, chopping wood, working in the kitchen, working in your patch of garden, doing practical things, but essentially, and there'll be other prayers through the day, Benedictine monks, it's from a psalm, you pray actually 7 times a day, which is just far too strict for me. My routine is much simpler. I have prayers normally at 8 in the morning. I get Monday off. My little routine, and then again, but not a strict thing, evening prayers at 6. That's it, really, in terms of any kind of formal prayers. But I'm praying inside all the time. So there's a question of peace. Right. And boy, you have to fight for it. I mean, I'm so aware of the world in which I live as not being at peace, for heaven's sake. That's the contrast. There's obviously Ukraine, Russia going on, which potentially could morph into a much wider, worldwide conflict. And that's just, well, I suppose that's the principal, biggest trouble in terms of it escalating into a proxy war of Russia and China versus America. So that would really be us, the world, the whole world, plunged into. But one could so easily just go around the world. Sri Lanka's obviously in trouble, but there's Iraq, Syria we don't hear about, Yemen, Colombia is still bubbling away, on and on and on one can go around the world, this troubled world. We've not heard much from Myanmar recently, Burma, Rohingya Muslims, and then there are the Uyghur Muslims too, being persecuted in China, and on one can go. Well, I have the same sort of sense. I mean, if there's something is wrong, you have to try and put it right. Well, if the thing that's wrong is the overall state of how you are treated as a human being, your inclination as a human being is to fight it. And we've had our centuries of internal conflict in Britain. the last big civil war, obviously, in England was Cromwell and all of that. Also, that was concomitant with the Reformation and the whole emergence of Protestantism. 1620, the Mayflower left these shores with the Pilgrims for America. William Penn and another one whose name I ought to know, that is Pennsylvania in America, because of religious persecution. And it really was. I mean, there are things called priest holes and underground tunnels dug out of these big country houses and estates and so on. For, you know, they'd come looking for the Roman Catholic priests to kill them. They were persecuted, martyred, I think until possibly as late as the 1800s. I may be wrong there. But I think for over 300 years, the Roman Catholics were at risk in England. I must look it up. So, at that fundamental level, if one's faith, which is more important than food itself, once it is, if you hold deeply a religious belief, then potentially you're going to be prepared to be martyred for it, and clearly that has happened around the world through the centuries, is happening now, and is likely to happen again. My overriding overall response is, as ever, this: to love God through Christ. So the two commandments: love God and then love your neighbor as yourself. So the way to achieve this peace is through love. So Christ says he's given it to us in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us. Well, there it is. It's just there. Any Christian gathering, community, meeting, service, whatever, the Lord's Prayer will be said. And they are not just words. It is the most important set of words that exists, the Lord's Prayer. It encapsulates the whole of Christianity, somehow. And yet we mankind, humanity, just loses the plot and ceases to live by it. Manifestly. This war in Ukraine, Russia versus Ukraine, to me essentially is a civil war, and the Western response is the same knee-jerk military response, which is not loving. To pile in ever more powerful weapons is not the loving answer. On a personal level, for heaven's sake, if your best mate is all fired up and he wants to go off and kill someone else, you don't jolly well give him a knife, do you, for heaven's sake? You try and calm them down, i.e. talk, get around the table. Even Putin used to be a bit of a blue-eyed boy in the West. Angela Merkel, I think, And then trade, actually. Trade, in fact, is one of the principal elements of peace. If you're trading with someone, then economic forces sort of dictate that you don't mash up the trading side of things. So the business trading types want peace, to operate in peace. This whole question of the grain and getting the grain out of Ukraine. Sorry, I'm not a poet. Which is going to massively affect Africa. I've been listening to the food program on Radio 4 and other countries and so on. Anyway, blessedly, hopefully, I've had trouble too here in my environment with the locals, but I mean nothing compared to the world's troubles, but it's been pretty unpleasant here for me for quite some time. I'm, fingers crossed, touch wood, plenty of wood in there. It's not all wood. Anyway, so I am in the frame of mind that essentially I'm at peace. I've got all my material needs pretty much. Broken left leg, but that's tough titty. I've just got to get on with it. I can still get around, which is the main thing. I can get on to public transport and get anywhere, sort of thing, providing I don't do too much. I can't go for wonderful long walks, but tough. And then I'm absolutely casting about as to how to add to the side of the balance for love, for peace, etc. Amen.